Southworks, and I welcome you to the channel today. We are going to do a garden tour in today's video, so keep watching to see how the garden is doing in mid-July. So today we're going to start the garden tour right here on the outside, and I have just been so happy about all of these flowers. I still have gaps in the flower beds, but then you have all this big long gap and then this pretty flower down here, and so it looks like it's hanging in there. A lot of the weedy flowers have died off, and then look, there's this one little daisy down there. And there, I'm pleased that these flowers are doing so well on the outside of the fence, because we do have deer that come in, which is the reason why we have the fence to begin with. And then we still have this gap, which is fine, that we have this gap. And then look, this pumpkin is growing on the outside of the fence. We'll have to do something to stabilize that when it gets a little bigger, but for right now it's hanging in there pretty well. And of course, being on this side of the fence, you can see just how crazy the pumpkins have gotten from this side of the fence, and it creates a lot of shade over here. So we still have gaps in these beds right here, and that's fine. I'll try again next year. I'm a little concerned about the wiltiness over here, because we have that big pumpkin growing right there that I have already put some support on for it. So hopefully it's gonna make it to maturity and turn nice and orange. It's already looks like it's turning a nice shade of orange, so hopefully it'll get it. So let's go in here. We have that is carrots growing down there. I don't know how mature they're gonna get. And these are my yellow squash here, and they just have not been fruitful this year at all. And now they're competing with a couple of trees over there. So when the growing season is over and it's time to rip these out, I've got to cut down those trees. My little strawberry patch hasn't got any bigger than this yet, but it's hanging in there. And of course, over here on this side is all of my zucchini squash, and they've just gotten big and unruly, but haven't produced a whole lot of fruit either. So I'm gonna have to better manage these. And of course, this big conglomeration of stuff is where the pumpkins have just really grown over the beds in this side. But I do have some sunflowers coming up in here that I planted late, so we'll see how those go. So now we're gonna go over in here. You get a good view of all of this is the pumpkins. I didn't expect them to kind of take over this side of the garden, but they have. So they're a little wilty right now because of the sun. When the sun starts going down, this is actually a mix of pumpkins and watermelon vines and cantaloupe vines. The cantaloupe has found its own trail, own patch of ground right here. I'm just gonna let that grow. The tomatoes have been doing very good this year. My bush beans have just about had it. I've pulled up several of those plants. These were looking okay, but now I think it's time for me to pull those up. And the peppers have, the tomatoes have overshadowed the peppers, and then we have this patch of marigolds growing right there. I don't know how those got there, but that's okay. The ants got most of this corn, and I'm just letting these two grow because they have ears on them, and hopefully the ants won't get them. And so I pulled out all of the pole beans that were back here, the garden beans, all the peas, the onions, all of that is gone. I saved this one little cucumber plant to see how it does by itself in here. The other cucumber that I had there just looked very sick, so I have only saved this one plant because it looked healthier than the rest. Over here I have planted a cantaloupe in this bed right here, just because I wasn't sure anything would make it, and it can end up growing up the fence behind it if it needs to, or it can just take over this whole bed because I've pulled everything out of this bed. And here's a better view of those crazy zucchini squash, or squash plants over here. They've grown huge, but they just don't produce a lot of fruit. So I'm gonna have to do some research on this to see how it is. And then here you can let me see if I can zoom in on that a little, where you can see that pretty little thing right there. That's one of my pumpkin plants, and it's supported by some plastic netting to try to support it on the fence. So that's the interior of the garden, and we'll go onto the porch now and look at some of the porch. So my dream for my outdoor space here is just to fill this up with plants. And so this is one corner of my porch where I pretty much got that started. So, and these plants are doing wonderfully right where they are. And I have really enjoyed watching them grow. Okay, so now we're out here in the front. And this is the geraniums, and they're hanging in there, but they're not doing so hot. And the same with these guys over here. The weather kind of got these, and those, and this thing fell over. So I'm gonna have to anchor that down somehow. But this area just doesn't look very good, unfortunately. I tried weeding this bed to get rid of the grass, and unfortunately I couldn't tell. It was hard to tell, as grown over as it is, which one's flowers and which one's not. So I decided to just leave it. And then at the end of this, when it starts getting winter and it's time to rip all this out, I think I'm gonna put down some ground cover or something on there, so to get rid of all the grass out of that bed. And unfortunately the deer like some of this, so if you can see that, they've been nibbling on some of these plants. And but they don't like the zinnias. So the zinnias are pretty much safe from the nibblers. And same goes with this bed. I have not put a lot of effort into weeding it, although I need to, because there was a flower down there that just got hopefully it's still down there somewhere, an ivy, but you know, I just let it get too overgrown, and I haven't weeded that yet. So it's on the agenda. I think I could weed this one without too much effort at all. And unfortunately, I don't know which is which, but I really like those little flowers right there. If I had paid more attention, and you see they're even eating some of them in this one. If I had paid more attention though, I would know what this is. But I kind of sowed the seeds willy-nilly, so now I don't know. Now I don't know. So next year, when I replant this, I'm gonna try to be more specific and know what I'm planting ahead of time. Although, you know, most of these beds turned out really willy-nilly, but they're producing some really pretty flowers, and I'm happy with that result. Even though they're overgrown with grass right now, they still look just amazingly beautiful, just kind of wild like that. So we pulled out the cactus because it was dead, and now we are not sure what to do with this hole. We just don't know what to do with this hole. And we have a tree growing, which the tree will have to come up, but I'll figure it out before next spring what we want to put in this hole where the cactus was. And this was the bed where I planted all my wildflowers, and instead we have a tree, and that tree will have to come up pretty soon. And these guys right here, they're just very resilient, and even though we've chopped them down a million times, you can see they keep coming back. And that's what was in this bed before I tried to plant the wildflowers. And now it's just kind of hodgepodge of the tree, the mix of grass and weeds. So again, at the end of the summer, we'll take all this down and put some ground cover on it, and kill all the grass and stuff out from under it, so we can replant in the spring. And I've learned the value of mulch, so if we start mulching these beds, we'll get less weeds that we have to pull out. So our tree is hanging in there despite the fact that it was heavily overrun with ants. I don't know what to do about that. These guys are hanging on. They've produced some magnificently beautiful flowers this year, although right now they don't have any, and they've been nibbled on by the various insects, but they did produce some really beautiful flowers while it was time to bloom. And my jasmine over here is holding on. This area doesn't get a whole lot of sunlight, and I think this right here is some basil or oregano that I planted in here. That's just kind of letting it grow, see what happens. And this little tree is doing its best to hang on. I'm not sure what all that white stuff is on it, but it is hanging on. And this tree is as well, and we definitely need to do some trimming because it is slowly but surely dying. So that's it for the garden tour this time. I hope you enjoyed watching the video, and I invite you to like and subscribe. And as always, I thank you so much for your time and attention, and have a blessed day.